The divorce came as a PDF attachment. Let's be adults about this, the subject line read. I was halfway through my tour in Kabul, boots in the dust, eyes on my mission, when my husband Brian decided he was done waiting. I opened the email during the mess. My blood turned to ice water. 13 years. Gone. Ended not with a conversation, not with tears, not even with a damn phone call. Ended in a PDF attachment. My name is Natalie Briggs, Staff Sergeant in the United States Army, and that was the day my husband lit a fire in me he couldn't put out. 3 sentences. That's all he gave me. 3 sentences to erase over a decade. Filed the paperwork. He emptied the joint account. Moved Chloe, his new girlfriend, into our house in Seattle. Chloe. Her name was like a physical punch. The woman whose perfume I'd found lingering in my car months ago. The one he swore was just a friend from work. I read it twice. The words blurred. My hands felt numb. I closed the laptop lid. The plastic was warm under my fingers. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't throw anything. The anger hadn't hit yet. Just a hollowing out. A vast, empty space where my marriage used to be. I stood up. My boots scuffed on the plywood floor. Needed air. Needed not this. I grabbed my towel and soap, went straight to the communal shower stall where the lukewarm water sluiced over me, mixing with the desert dust ingrained in my skin. He emptied our joint account. How much was left? Our savings. The money my parents left us when they passed? Moved Chloe into my house, the one I qualified for with my VA loan, the one I painted the living room of during my last leave, blasting old rock songs while Brian complained about the fumes. Our dog, Duke, was Chloe walking him now? Using my favorite coffee mug? Sleeping in my bed? All these were going through my mind as I got dressed, said nothing to anyone during my shift, checked weapons, ran comms checks, answered questions. My voice sounded normal, distant maybe, but normal. Inside, that hollow space was filling, not with grief, not yet, with something colder, sharper, like the edge of a knife being slowly honed. Back in my bunk that night, the email glowed on my screen again. Deborah, my bunkmate, glanced up from her book. She was sharp, saw everything. "You good, Briggs?" she asked, not looking directly at me. Military personnel know. They know the weight of silence, the look of someone carrying bad news from home. "Yeah," I said, my voice rough. "Just some stuff back home." Stuff. What a word for your life imploding. She nodded once, didn't pry, just went back to her book. That simple gesture, that respect for the unspoken, almost cracked me. Almost. Instead, I opened the reply box, stared at the blinking cursor. What could I say? Beg? Threaten? Rage? None of that was me, never had been. My dad, a quiet mechanic, taught me young. Think before you speak, be sure before you act. Never start fights, but always finish them. My fingers moved. One word. Understood. I hit send. The screen went dark. Truth was, I wasn't surprised. Not really. The signs had been there, flickering like faulty wiring for months before I shipped out. Small things, insidious things. Brian stopped asking about my day, stopped caring about the mundane details of base life, the dark humor that got us through. He started working late at the insurance office where he processed claims. A lot. 3-4 times a week. Started hitting the gym religiously. Gotta get in shape, Nat. But never seemed sweaty or tired when he got home. Just energized. Distant. New clothes appeared. Sharper. Expensive. Clothes he'd never choose himself. New passwords on his phone, guarded like state secrets. New friends I never met, heard only in hushed phone calls in the garage. I didn't confront him, didn't snoop through his messages. That felt desperate, beneath me. But I wasn't blind. My gut, honed by years of assessing risk in hostile environments, screamed a warning. Something was coming, something ugly. So, quietly, methodically, like prepping for a mission, I made my moves. No drama, no accusations, just preparation. I rented a small, anonymous storage unit across town. Not near the base, not near home. Somewhere neutral. Inside went the important things. My birth certificate, our marriage license, the original house deed showing only my name, thanks VA loan, my military benefits paperwork, my DD-214s, then the things that mattered only to me. My grandfather's old railroad pocket watch, heavy and comforting in my hand. My mom's delicate silver tea set, the only thing she brought from Ireland. Irreplaceable. Safe. Next, a new bank. Different branch, different town. A separate account solely in my name. I started diverting a small, steady stream of my pay bear. Not enough to raise eyebrows on our joint statements, just enough that if the dam broke, I wouldn't be left drowning. A lifeline. The night before deployment, at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, before boarding, Brian hugged me. It was stiff, perfunctory, like hugging a distant cousin. "Stay safe, okay?" he said. His eyes were dry, clear. No red rims, no trembling lip. Just empty. Like he was saying goodbye to a coworker heading on a business trip, not his wife heading into a war zone. I should have known then. That finality in his touch, the absence of fear in his eyes. But a stupid, stubborn part of me, the part that remembered lazy Sundays and inside jokes, still hoped. Hoped I was wrong. Hoped it was just stress, deployment jitters on his end. Standing there in the bunk after sending that one-word reply, that hope finally died. Cold certainty replaced it. What Brian didn't know was that I'd seen the storm clouds gathering. What he didn't understand was that while I'd never start this fight, I was damn sure going to finish it on my terms. We met at Jason's barbecue back in 2010. I was home between tours, breathing in the green smell of Washington State after the dust of Iraq. Brian was finishing his business degree, full of big ideas, charming, quick to laugh. We married 8 months later. Fast, maybe too fast, but it felt right then. He used to say he was proud of my service, though I don't think he ever truly got it. His dad was an accountant. His sister taught yoga. No military in his blood. He'd sometimes ask casually over dinner, "So, when you gonna trade that uniform in for a real job, Nat?" Like the army after 15 years was just a hobby. Like leading soldiers, the responsibility I carried. It was just killing time. It cut deeper than he knew. We bought the house in 2014. Modest 3 bedrooms, a patch of grass out back, quiet street with my VA loan. My credit, but I added his name to the deed the next day. Because that's what you do when you're married. You share, you build together. My dad died suddenly a year after the wedding. Heart attack, shoveling snow, gone. Then Mom, 3 years later, lung cancer, though she'd never touched a cigarette. The grief was a physical ache, but they left me something. Not a fortune, but enough. Enough to pay off Brian's lingering student loans and give us a solid cushion, a shared future. I deployed 4 times during our marriage. Iraq twice, Afghanistan twice. Each homecoming, Brian felt a little further away, a little more restless, like he was playing the part of supportive husband, but the script didn't fit anymore. The excitement of my return would fade fast, replaced by a quiet tension. He'd get absorbed in his phone, make plans that didn't include me. "I didn't sign up to be a military husband," he snapped once after I mentioned possibly re-upping for another 4 years. We were doing dishes. His voice was brittle. "I'm tired of being alone all the time, Natalie. Tired of waiting." I understood the loneliness, I did. But the Army, it wasn't just a job. It was where I belonged, where my skills mattered, where people depended on me. It was me. He never saw that. By 2019, the changes weren't subtle anymore. He'd get irritated if I called during his guys' nights. Started talking constantly about his friend Mark, who divorced his wife and was living his best life. Started talking little bombshells. We don't really have much in common anymore, do we, Nat? Counseling, we're fine, he'd brush me off. Just a rough patch. Then came the real late nights, the weekends away with clients I'd never met. The expensive new wardrobe, the gym membership he barely used, smelling faintly of Chloe's floral perfume. Ding, 2 weeks after the divorce email, sitting in the mess hall, plastic tray in front of me, the sound cut through the clatter of trays and voices. A notification from our bank app. Another withdrawal. My thumb hovered over the screen. That cold feeling was back. I opened the app. $88,500 transferred out. The joint account balance? $22.37. Our savings account? $0. Emptied. Transferred to an account number I didn't recognize. Just numbers on a screen, sucking the air from my lungs. Murphy from my unit leaned over, fork halfway to his mouth. Bad news, Sarge? His voice sounded far away. I locked the screen. The plastic casing felt slick in my suddenly clammy hand. No, I managed, forcing my voice level. Just some account stuff. Account stuff, the understatement of the century. My stomach churned. The food on my tray looked like ash. That night, I'd called the bank from the base phone center. The sterile fluorescent lights hummed overhead. I identified myself, my voice tight. The customer service rep, polite but detached, confirmed it. Brian hadn't just taken the final chunk. He'd been siphoning money for weeks. Small amounts at first, testing the waters. Then bigger. The major transfer started the day after I deployed, the day after he hugged me with dry eyes at the airport. I hung up, stood in the narrow hallway outside the phone room. Guys walked past, laughing, heading to call their families. "Love you, buddy," one shouted into a phone. "Be home soon, sweetheart," another murmured. Normal life happening all around me, while mine was a smoldering crater. The anger finally arrived. Not a hot flash, a deep glacial cold spreading through my core. That's when Deborah found me. Leaned against the cinder block wall, arms crossed. "Heard from Alvarez, you looked like you'd seen a ghost at dinner," she said quietly. No judgment, just observation. "What's up?" I rarely shared, but Deborah, she dragged me out of an ambush outside Kandahar 2 years prior. Took a round in her plate carrier doing it. I trusted her with my life. Why not my disaster? Brian. I said the name like acid on my tongue. Emptied our accounts. Moved his girlfriend into our house. Sent divorce papers while I was on patrol last week. Deborah didn't flinch. Didn't offer platitudes. She just looked at me. His eyes sharp. "What's your plan, Briggs?" Plan. The word cut through the fog of betrayal. That cold feeling solidified into something usable, hard, focused, like zeroing a rifle scope. "Not sure yet," I admitted, but the gears were turning fast. She nodded. "Let me know if you need anything." She meant it. Intel, backup, a listening ear, whatever. That night's sleep was impossible. The anger was a live wire. I pulled out my laptop, logged into our home security system. Brian probably forgot it existed, or assumed I couldn't access it remotely. A stupid oversight. My fingers flew over the keys. The feed loaded. Living room camera. A strange, sleek silver sedan was parked in my driveway. Inside, a woman, Chloe, curled on my sofa, flipping through a magazine. Brian walked past, heading to the kitchen. He was wearing my favorite worn Seahawks hoodie. My hoodie. He picked up my chipped World's Best Sergeant coffee mug, the one my unit gave me, and took a sip. Duke, our goofy Labrador, trotted after him, tail wagging. Brian scratched his ears absently. Then Chloe said something, and Brian laughed, a deep, easy laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in years. No more hollow pain, no more shock. I pulled out my phone, opened a notepad app. The mission parameters snapped into focus. I wrote, "Call James, Army buddy, now a razor-sharp JAG loiner in Tacoma. Discreet VA loan terms. Review the house." It was mine. My name only on the mortgage. What could Brian do? Emergency leave, contact Master Sergeant Grounds, extreme financial hardship fraud, family emergency. Duke counted. Damn it. Home refinance docs. Brian had mentioned refinancing for a better rate casually last year. Alarm bells rang. Now check everything. Military pension accounts, lock them down, change beneficiaries. Now the sadness was gone, burned away. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was about survival, about justice, and about finishing the fight Brian started. 0500 hours. Before dawn cracked over the desert, I sent James an email. The subject, need legal help, discreet, urgent, family implosion, fraud. His reply hit an hour later. Call me, secure line only, now. 20 minutes later, I hung up. The plan wasn't just formed. It was loaded, aimed, and ready. James's voice had been calm, analytical, then progressively more grim as I laid it out. His final words echoed. Natalie, this is nuclear, but it's justified. We play this smart, we play it quiet, we let them hang themselves. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to threaten Brian. I just needed to wait, to watch, to gather evidence and let his own greed, his own arrogance build the trap around him. 2 months later, set my foot on the American soil, Seattle. I didn't tell Brian I was back. Didn't call, didn't text, just checked into a nondescript motel downtown under the name Sarah Miller. The room smelled of stale cigarettes and cheap cleaner. I dropped my duffel bag. Freedom felt heavy, complicated. I called James. We met at a dingy diner 10 miles outside town, the kind with sticky floors and fluorescent lights that buzzed. James slid into the booth opposite me. He looked older, sharper in a crisp suit than in fatigues, but the same keen intelligence was in his eyes. You look like hell, Briggs, he said, no sugarcoating. Feel like it too, I replied, taking the thick manila folder he pushed across the Formica table. Everything we discussed, he said. Deed, original VA loan docs, bank statements showing the transfers, and this. He tapped a separate sheet clipped to the front. It was a loan application, refinancing for $330,000 against my house. My signature was scrawled at the bottom. I stared. It was close, but not mine. My middle initial was wrong. He'd used R instead of A, and the flourish on the B for Briggs, I always made it sharp, decisive. This was rounded, hesitant, a forgery. Brian, I asked, though the cold certainty was back. James nodded. Filed 3 months ago. Needed your signature for the VA loan, so he provided it. I traced the fake signature with my fingertip. The paper felt cheap. So, forge my signature, take out a huge loan against my house, clean out our joint accounts, divorce me by email, busy guy. The gall of it was almost impressive. It gets better, James said, a hint of disgust in his tone. He listed Chloe as a co-applicant. My eyebrows shot up. On a VA loan, that's not how it works. Exactly, James said. Red flag, so I dug. Chloe Evans, she's got a record, 2 DUIs and a fraud charge from 2019. Plead down, but it's there. I took a deep breath. The diner coffee tasted like Brent rubber. Okay, James, what are my options? Several, he said, leaning forward. But first, Nat, you need to decide what you want. What's the end game? I didn't hesitate. The image of Brian in my hoodie, Chloe laughing, the $88,500 gone, it crystallized my answer. I want what's legally mine. Every penny, the house clear of that fraudulent loan, and, I met his gaze, I want them to understand consequences, real ones. A slow, grim smile spread across James's face. It wasn't cruel. It was the smile of a strategist seeing the path to victory. Then here's what we do. The next day, my old neighborhood, familiar streets felt alien, dangerous. I parked down the block from my house. Brian's car was in the driveway. Chloe's silver sedan wasn't. My hands clenched on the steering wheel, knuckles white. I watched the house. The curtains in the living room twitched. Part of me screamed to march up there, to bang on the door, to see the shock on his face, to demand answers, to scream. No, that wasn't the plan. Emotion was the enemy now. Emotion made mistakes. I started the engine, drove away, straight to the bank that handled the fraudulent refinance. I met with the loan officer who'd processed it. Mr. Henderson, mid-50s, receding hairline, looked like he followed the rules. I introduced myself, Staff Sergeant Natalie Briggs,
presented my military ID, crisp and undeniable, then my driver's license. I slid the refinance application across his desk, my finger pointing to the signature. That, I said, my voice calm, icy, is not my signature. He paled, compared the signatures, looked at my IDs, looked back at the application, sweat beaded on his forehead. I'll need to report this immediately. This is serious fraud. I understand, I said, pulling out another document, the police report James had helped me file the day before. I've already started the process. That night, back in the motel, my phone buzzed. A text from Brian. Who have you been talking to at the bank? Chloe said someone was asking questions. I stared at the screen. The blue light reflected in the dark room. I didn't type, didn't react. Silence was my weapon now. The next day, at the county clerk's office, I filed formal paperwork contesting the refinance due to forgery and fraud. Filed a notice preventing any further changes to the property title without my physical presence or court order. Paperwork. Bureaucracy. My new battlefield. 2 days later, my phone rang. Brian flashed on the screen. I let it ring, listened it to go to voicemail. His voice, tight with forced calm, filled the motel room. Natalie, we need to talk. The bank called about the house. What are you doing? If this is about the divorce, we can discuss it like adults. Like adults. The same words from his fucking email. The hypocrisy was almost impressive. I deleted the message. James called that afternoon. They froze the remaining refinance money, $164,500, sitting in limbo. And there's more. His voice held a note of grim satisfaction. Your husband's girlfriend has been driving your truck, right? The one still in your name? Yeah, I said, the image of Chloe behind the wheel of my F-150 making my jaw clench. She got pulled over this morning, speeding, license suspended from those DUIs, truck impounded. Good, I said, the word sharp. Also, James continued, the cops found some interesting things in the truck during the inventory. Prescription pads from the dental office Blind works at as office manager? They weren't blank. I closed my eyes, leaned my forehead against the cool motel wall. She's been stealing prescription pads. Looks that way, James said. Police are investigating. Pharmacy fraud's a big deal. I sank onto the edge of the bed. This was spiraling fast, bigger than just Brian betraying me. This felt systemic. Part of me, the part that remembered the man he used to be, twinged. Should I warn him? Give him a chance to run before it got worse? Then I remembered the security footage, his laugh, my hoodie, my mug, my life sold off for parts while I dodged IEDs. That cold resolve slammed back down. No, this was the path he chose. When he forged my name, when he stole from me, when he moved Chloe in before the ink was dry on divorce papers he emailed to a war zone. Consequences. Let them come.
Meeting with the bank fraud investigator the next morning, Mr. Thompson, tired eyes, coffee stain on his tie, he spread documents across his desk. Happens more often than you'd think, Sergeant, he said, his voice weary. Spouse deploys, other spouse sees an opportunity. What happens now? I asked, keeping my voice level. We've frozen the funds from the fraudulent refinance. But, he hesitated, there's a problem. Some of the money's already gone. My stomach dropped. How much? About half, $165,000. I leaned forward. Where did it go? It's my house, my name forged, my money stolen. Thompson sighed, looked conflicted, then slowly turned his computer screen towards me. A list of transfers scrolled down, multiple outgoing payments, all to the same name, Dave Williams. Not Chloe. Someone else, a stranger. Who? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Is Dave Williams? Thompson shrugged, looking uncomfortable. Not my department, Sergeant, but you should ask your lawyer to subpoena these records. I called James from the car. Dave Williams? Who is he? James repeated the name. Let me run a check. Sit tight. The hour that followed felt like days. I paced the tiny motel room. Dave Williams real estate? Some scam. Where did $165,000 of my house's equity go? James called back. Got it. Dave Williams, real estate agent, specializes in quick sales, cash deals, often below market value. The realization hit me like a mortar round. He was planning to sell my house. The betrayal deepened, turned rancid. It wasn't just about stealing money, it was about erasing my entire foothold, my sanctuary. Looks that way, James confirmed. The transfers were likely deposits or fees to secure his quick sale services. But here's where it gets really interesting. Nat Williams has done business with Chloe Evans before. 3 property deals in the past 2 years. I sat down hard on the bed. The pattern snapped into horrifying focus. So this wasn't just Brian leaving me for some girl. This was a planned operation with her? Maybe, James said carefully. I did some deeper digging into Chloe Evans. She has a pattern, gets involved with men going through messy divorces or with deployed spouses. I found 3 similar cases. Each time the marital home gets sold quickly, well below value, to one of Williams' investor clients. Chloe gets a cut, then she moves on. And Brian, I whispered, did he know? Was he part of it? Or just another mark? Hard to say, James admitted. Maybe he's a victim too, swept up in her scheme and his own greed. Or maybe he's fully in on it, seeing a payday. Either way, other military families have been targeted. The room felt too small, the air too thick. This wasn't my personal tragedy anymore. It was a wound inflicted on the larger military community. On people like me, serving far from home, trusting the wrong person. What do we do? I asked, my voice tight. I've already contacted the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, James said, his tone decisive. This crosses state lines, involves targeting military personnel, VA loan fraud. They're very interested. That night in my motel room with a beer, the silence pressed in. Was Brian a willing conspirator or a desperate fool played by a predator? Did it even matter anymore? He'd still chosen to betray me, to steal, to forge, to try and sell the roof over my head. The anger was still there, but now it was mixed with a sickening sense of pity and a fierce protective rage for the others Chloe and Williams might have targeted. My phone buzzed. Brian again. Natalie, please call me. The bank is saying something about fraud and Chloe got arrested driving your truck. I don't understand what's happening. I stared at the message. The panic in his words was palpable. Finally, after weeks of silence, I typed back, "Who was Dave Williams?" 3 dots bouncing, stopping, starting again, stopping for 10 agonizing minutes. Then he replied, "I don't know what you're talking about." I replied, $165,000, multiple transfers, house listing. Silence. Then he replied, "It's not what you think." I turned the phone off. The screen went black. His lie was the final confirmation I needed. I went to bed. For the first time in months, I slept. James called early the next morning. FBI wants to meet today. They've been investigating Chloe and Williams for months. You're not the first victim they found, but you might be the case that breaks it wide open. For the first time since opening that email in the desert, a flicker of something warm cut through the cold. Not happiness, not even schadenfreude. Satisfaction. Deep, bone-deep satisfaction. The truth was coming, and it wouldn't be kind to Brian or Chloe. The Seattle FBI field office, all sharp lines and muted colors. Agent Susan and Kevin. Susan was sharp-eyed, efficient. Kevin had a calm, steady presence. They recorded my statement meticulously, took copies of every document, the forged signature, the bank transfers, the security footage, screenshots, the police report, James' notes on Chloe's pattern. Your case is crucial, Sergeant Briggs, Agent Susan explained. It helps establish a clear pattern of intent, shows organization. This isn't isolated bad behavior. It points to a conspiracy targeting vulnerable military families during deployment. It's a serious federal matter. What about Brian? I asked, forcing the name out. My husband, ex-husband. What's his level of involvement? The agents exchanged a look. Kevin answered carefully. We're still determining that. Did he ever mention significant financial pressure, urgency to sell the house? I thought back. Brian had started complaining about being house poor constantly about 6 months ago. He kept saying we should downsize, that the mortgage was crippling us, but it wasn't. Not on my salary and his job. The payments were manageable.
I remember brushing it off as stress. Susan made a note. Around the time he likely met Chloe Evans. Yes, I confirmed, the timeline clicking into place. And the refinance application, the forgery, filed while you were deployed, Kevin stated. Never discussed it with you prior? Never. They asked more questions. I answered honestly, dispassionately. When we finished, Susan handed me her card. We'll be in touch. In the meantime, do not confront Brian or Chloe. We need to build this case carefully, by the book. Understood, I said. The soldier in me responded to clear orders. That evening, back in the neighborhood, parked down the street, Chloe's truck was back in the driveway. Must have gotten it out of impound. Brian's car was gone. My phone buzzed. Another text from Brian. We need to talk in person. Meet me at Riverfront Park tomorrow 10 a.m., bench by the clock tower. Please, Nat. I showed it to James over breakfast the next morning at the same dingy diner. Don't go, he advised, immediately stabbing a piece of pancake. Nothing good comes from talking to him right now. Could jeopardize the investigation, or he can manipulate you. I won't go, I said, but I want to know what he's doing today while he thinks I'm meeting him. 9:30 a.m. We parked across the street from my house, hidden behind tinted windows. My heart hammered against my ribs. 9:45 a.m. Brian came out, dressed carefully, looked anxious. He got in his car and drove off towards Riverfront Park, towards a meeting with no one. Now what? James asked, eyes fixed on the house. Now, I said, pulling out my phone. We wait. 20 minutes crawled by. Then a car pulled up. Black sedan, real estate logo on the door. Dave Williams Realty. A man in a too-tight suit got out. Dave Williams. Brian wasn't here, but Chloe was. She came out to greet him, all smiles. They talked animatedly in the driveway, pointing at the roof, the yard. Then they went inside. Should we follow them in? James asked, hand on the door handle. No need, I said, a grim smile touching my lips for the first time in months. I installed security cameras last year, interior and exterior. They upload straight to cloud storage. Brian probably forgot they existed or thought I couldn't access them. James looked at me impressed. You didn't mention that before. Never came up, I said, opening the security app on my phone. I angled the screen so James could see. Living room camera. Williams was taking photos with a professional camera. Chloe was gesturing grandly, pointing out features.
I turned up the volume.
The master bedroom is huge, tons of potential, and the kitchen, all renovated. Solid maple cabinets, granite counters. Sergeant Special here did it herself before she shipped out.
Good. Should list by the end of the week. Got a buyer already interested. Cash offer, quick close. As usual.
How much?
We list at $470K. They'll offer $420K. Everybody's happy. Clean.
Perfect. Brian's freaking out, though. The bank stuff, and she's back.
Military guys, gals, whatever. They're all the same. They make noise, threaten, but they've got deployments, responsibilities, chain of command breathing down their necks. She'll take a settlement to make it go away. They always do. Too much hassle. Too much duty.
He smirked. James was already recording the feed on his own phone, getting every word. He muttered, his eyes hard. I didn't hesitate. I forwarded the live feed access link directly to Agent Susan's secure FBI email. Typed the short message, happening now, discussing fraud, sale, audio-visual confirmation, 421 Oak Street. Less than 30 minutes later, I watched from the car down the street, my street, transformed into a scene from a crime drama. Black SUVs, unmarked cars, agents in vests swarming my house. The front door burst open. Agents led Williams and Chloe out in handcuffs. Williams looked stunned. Chloe was crying, protesting loudly, her hair disheveled. My phone rang. Agent Susan. Got them, she said, her voice tight with adrenaline. On tape, discussing the fraud, the below-market sale conspiracy, plus the wire fraud. and attempting to sell property under false pretenses. We're executing a search warrant now. We'll need a formal statement later, of course. I said, my eyes fixed on the scene. Agents were carrying boxes of documents out of my house. Then I saw him. Brian. His car had pulled up. He stood frozen on the sidewalk halfway to the front lawn. His face was ashen. He looked shattered, lost. His eyes scanned the chaos, the agents, the handcuffs, the boxes, then landed on my house, his house, our house, the life he'd tried to steal and sell. Sergeant Briggs? Susan's voice came through the phone. Your husband just arrived. He's distressed. I watched him. 13 years. Laughter, arguments, shared dreams, grief, all swirling in the dust kicked up by FBI vehicles. The anger was still there, but it was muted now. Underneath it was something else. Exhaustion, pity, a profound sadness for what he'd thrown away and what he'd become. What happens to him? I asked quietly. That depends, Susan said carefully, on what he knew, on what he did, and on what you want. I watched Brian sink onto the curb, his head in his hands. He looked small, broken. Not the charming man from the barbecue, not the betrayer, just broken. I thought about the other families, the ones Chloe and Williams had already hurt. I just want what's right, I said finally, my voice clear and steady. What's just? The federal case moved like a landslide. Faced with the security footage, audio, the paper trail, and the pattern of other victims, Williams and Chloe both took plea deals almost immediately. They turned on each other, implicating each other and several other players in what turned out to be a multi-state operation, specifically targeting military spouses during deployments. Brian, he maintained he knew nothing about the larger scheme, claimed Chloe manipulated him, convinced him I was secretly planning to leave him penniless after the divorce, said the refinance was her idea. The forgery was her desperate solution to save his share of the house. He swore he didn't know about Williams or the plan to sell. Maybe it was true. Maybe he was just a pawn. Or maybe he was lying to save his skin. The FBI couldn't prove his knowledge of the wider conspiracy beyond the forgery and the theft from our joint accounts. He agreed to everything. Full restitution of every penny he stole, the $88,500 plus the chunk of the refinance he'd gotten before the freeze, forfeited any claim to the house or my military pension, signed a detailed confession admitting to forging my signature on the loan docs. In exchange, I didn't press additional criminal charges beyond what the feds had. It was pragmatic. It ensured the money came back faster. It ended it. The divorce finalized 6 months after that desert email. A no-fault divorce, clean break, on paper at least. All things considered, it was the best possible outcome from the worst possible situation. The day the last paperwork was signed, Agent Susan called. Chloe Evans was sentenced today. 8 years. Fraud, conspiracy, identity theft related to the prescriptions. Williams got 12. Thought you'd want to know. Thank you, I said. The number felt adequate. Not joyful, just right. There's something else. She added, her voice softened slightly. We confirmed 11 other families, military spouses deployed, targeted by Chloe and Williams' network. Your case, Sergeant Briggs. Your evidence. Your resolve. It was the linchpin. Those families, they have a real chance of getting restitution now because of you. After we hung up, I sat on the porch of the small rental apartment I'd moved into after selling the house. I couldn't bear to live in it. Too many ghosts. Too much betrayal in the walls. The Seattle sunset painted the sky orange and purple. I thought about those 11 other names. 11 other soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines who'd kissed their spouses goodbye, trusting them to hold the fort, only to have their entire world looted and sold out from under them. I hadn't set out to be a hero. I just wanted what was mine. But sometimes,
Sometimes standing your ground does more than just protect you. It protects the ones coming up behind you. A year later, Western Montana. A small log cabin nestled on 10 acres, 2 bedrooms, no neighbors for miles, just mountains, pine trees, and the quiet rush of a creek behind the house. I'd sold the Seattle house, used the money plus my restored savings to buy this peace, solitude, space to breathe, air that didn't taste like dust or betrayal. I took early retirement. 20 years was enough. I'd given enough. My military pension covered the basics. I got a dog, a big, goofy German shepherd named Scout, started doing carpentry work for locals, fixing decks, building bookshelves, simple, honest work. Kept my hands busy, my mind calm. Sometimes in the deep quiet of the Montana night, I'd think about Brian. James heard he'd moved back to his hometown in Oregon, working at another insurance office, starting over. I didn't hate him, didn't pity him much anymore either. Just nothing. He'd made his choices, I'd made mine. We both lived with the consequences. One crisp fall evening, I got a letter. Fort Worth, Texas postmark. A name I didn't recognize. Sarah Reynolds. I opened it. Dear Sergeant Briggs, you don't know me. My husband, Mike, is a chief petty officer in the Navy. He was deployed when Chloe Evans and Dave Williams targeted us. They tried the same thing. Pressure to sell, forged documents, lies. The FBI gave me your name as part of the case. We were fighting back when it would have been easier to just walk away. Because of your courage, because you stood up and showed them we wouldn't just take it, we kept our home. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. You saved us. I read it twice. Tears pricked my eyes. Not sad tears, something else. Something warm and solid. I pinned the letter to my refrigerator. Some days, when the mountain silence felt too vast, or the memories of betrayal tried to creep back in, I'd look at that letter. Remember Sarah and Mike in Fort Worth. Remember the other names. Remember that something good, something strong had grown from the ashes of my own disaster. Last I heard, Chloe was still in prison. Williams, too. The system worked, for once. As for me, I'm finding my way forward. One quiet sunrise over the mountains at a time. One plank of wood smoothed by hand. One hike with Scout through the pines. Building something new. Something simple. Something solid. Something that can't be stolen or forged or betrayed. Something that's just mine. Revenge wasn't about making him suffer. It was about reclaiming what was mine. My money, my home, my dignity, my future. It was about ensuring that betrayal had consequences, that greed met justice. And sometimes standing your ground, armed with nothing but the truth and quiet preparation, doesn't just win your battle, it builds a fortress others can shelter in too. The best revenge isn't rage. It's rebuilding a life brick by solid brick on your own terms, in the quiet, in the peace, knowing you didn't break, you finished the fight. What an incredible journey of resilience and quiet strength. Natalie didn't just survive betrayal, she exposed a predator and protected others. If this story of meticulous strategy and ultimate justice resonated with you, smash that like button. It lets us know you want more real-life reckonings like this. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into the most satisfying Reddit revenge stories. We read every comment. Tell us below, what's the most impressive quiet revenge move you've ever witnessed? Could you have stayed that calm under fire? Share your thoughts. And if you know someone who needs a dose of empowerment today, share this video. Until next time, stay strong, stay strategic, and remember, sometimes the quietest plans hit the hardest. Later, warriors.